It's also presenting research of ITT and our partners. And in that sense, I'm very happy that today we have two special guests here, both from, well, Colombians, but not from purely Colombian institutions, but Javeriana University is a Colombian university. Juan Diego Giraldo, or Osorio, I don't know which name you prefer, but both, all of your names, you know, you can also read it here.
My name, the short version is Juan, and Giraldo is my last name. It's, you know.
Juan Giraldo. Okay, perfect. So Juan is actually staying with us for 1 week. He's a visiting professor from Javeriana University, working in hydrology, climate change issues, etc. And he will share his research, also the research of his research group or your colleagues, even at Javeriana, working on water and related issues, and hopefully, well, motivating you to join his research, their research, our research, because we have a common research project called Tropiseca, and where you also CNRD partner, so there are a lot of connections. You know? This will be after my presentation. My presentation will be about the master thesis research of our group in general, so it will be a kind of broad presentation, but also then we will have some specific proposals. At the end, you will find all of these specific proposals on Elias. You know, I have the documents here to show them quickly to you. There are also others, like Santiago. Perhaps Ribbe can add a little bit, or Oscar, on certain topics we offer from our research group. And we have a second special guest here, that is Jorge Leon. He's sitting in the back. As I said, Colombian, but working for NGO based in the United States. You are working from Colombia because it's an international NGO, even having an office in Germany since recently, called the Nature Conservancy. So you may have heard about it. It's I think you claim, or it probably is, the biggest environmental NGO in the world. You know? So
Biggest, not the famous.
Not the most famous? Okay. After your presentation, it's the most famous as well. So thank you very much for being here. And we have actually also a project with the Nature Conservancy on monitoring and modeling watershed services in terms of watershed or water source protection. This is about watersheds that supply cities with water, and they have a very interesting and very successful concept called water funds, and this is the connection between the watersheds offering the water and the cities needing the water, and how to bring them together in developing innovative concepts. So that's the third presentation today. So we have a full schedule. This is why I will start, and actually Firos, where is Firos? There in the back. He is also joining this presentation because in this project with TNC, the focus is really on innovative forms of monitoring watersheds, water quantity, water quality, even atmospheric and other parameters. And Firos is heading our developments in the direction of innovative and cost-effective monitoring strategies, and the let's say devices which he will also present under the name of ITT Smart Sense. So that is then his addition to this presentation on TNC. So thank you for being here, and now I will start with this overview about our research group, our, let's say, activities. And well, the main purpose is, of course, not to give you a complete overview about what we are doing, because we are a research group formed of around 6 postdocs and around 20 PhD students, and then many other collaborators. So it's a big group with a lot of research. It will not be possible to present that in just half an hour, but to give you an overview and then to invite you to ask questions and to make appointments with me or with us, and to discuss further when you identify a topic that could be interesting to you. That's the idea. So don't expect now each and every proposal being so specific that we tell you exactly where you should do research on exactly what, but to give you the fields of research that we promote. The first slide is about how we work, because that's also important. It's not, let's say, the same for any research group in the world, how you approach that. For us, it's very important because we work in the tropics and subtropics, that the first and foremost point of entry is our partner. Our partner is a university in another country. It could be Javeriana University, for example, but we have actually partners, more than 20 partner universities, and they are in contact with the society and work on a case study and to identify in a form of dialogue what are the challenges regarding research, regarding education. And from that, we derive our research questions. We conduct the research together with our partner in forms of master thesis, hopefully you will join that, or in form of PhD thesis, or in form of funded projects, joint projects with TNC, etc. And that will allow us actually for the region then to provide knowledge that is needed. For example, to provide knowledge on ecosystem services that provide water to a city. So that is then hopefully the result of one or many master thesis research results to later share the knowledge for better decision making. We also call this, let's say, in the sense of the cooperation between the science partners on one hand and the practice partners on the other hand. We call this knowledge and innovation platform. So what you will actually hear in the next Wednesdays, and well, that was the first slide was about the topic today and the presentations today, and perhaps I can go back. I forgot to mention that we will have, next to this presentation, you will also have presentations on our NI research. So if you are very interested in the topics of the NI group, then you are especially invited to that. It is giving you, again, research, an overview about our research, but also here the opportunity to have a much deeper dialogue on potential research topics. We will have one meeting on the projects in Chile, Brazil, Colombia, and well, the topic of drought risk assessment. And then there will be one on research in the MENA region, in particular a project we are now preparing. Hopefully it will be officially granted soon to develop a knowledge and innovation platform for Jordan, and under the title Water Security from Data to Decision. And that is such a knowledge and innovation platform that I just mentioned. So if you are specifically interested in this topic, you will learn more about that, and then these will be the opportunities to discuss research related to a more specific topic and region. So important is that we work in long-term partnerships, because you cannot do that in 1 year to find out what are the challenges of research, what are the research topics and so on, and later even provide the acquired knowledge or the needed data and knowledge and information back to the users. That means we, in the regions that I mentioned, we are working hopefully in a long-term perspective. Of course, it's always a question of partnership, how solid it is, how trustworthy is it. Sometimes you realize that you have different interests, so you separate, just like in real life. But you, let's say, perhaps also strengthen the partnership, and then you can continue working even in other topics than the original thought topics. And this is now showing you these cases that I mentioned. And I think research, of course, you can develop something theoretically, but the better is if you really have a very concrete topic on the ground where where society is facing certain challenges. And this is now, you cannot read it, it's also not the idea, but for each of these case studies where we are working with the different partners, and as I said, some are here, some will be present in the other presentations, or some of them you will perhaps meet later this semester. We are working on different topics in different size, let's say, study regions, and in all of these regions, the society is facing different challenges. So that is then the framework of the current research. Where do we work? This does not mean that you cannot do your master thesis in a different region, but these are the regions where we have done some initial research, where we can offer you support, where we have partners. And for example, the Magdalena, that is a watershed, a big watershed, but completely located within Colombia, where we have done some research already with master thesis, and also some PhD students from Colombia were here, some master students for exchange, and so on. So basically we are then talking about a system which is typically a watershed, but not only, where we are, let's say, identifying certain challenges. To summarize, what are the typical challenges that we address in our research group is around the topic of water security. So the biggest enemy of water security is water scarcity and drought, but of course also too much water can be a problem, pollution can be a problem. Sometimes there is enough water, but the question is who gets water when. So it's a kind of a question of allocating resources, or asking who has the priority of right, or who is the suffering downstream, etc. These could be conflicts of all types between sectors in the same basin, but also between countries that share a certain basin. And another, let's say, important aspect of, let's say, challenge is related to the source, the actual source of water. Where does the water come from? So if we don't protect the sources, we will not have water in the future for all purposes. And there's what you have heard, and we offer a certain module on that next semester, is the connection to energy, from water security to energy security. Example, hydropower, or let's say saving energy in water treatment, distribution, and so on, storage. Hallo. Wie immer, ja, es ist nicht wie immer. Du kannst gerne dazukommen. Es gibt was Neues zu berichten. Food security. So this is then the relation, of course, irrigation and so on. No? So that it means irrigation needs water. Of course, agriculture, those who attend the module on water and agriculture know that agriculture impacts water in terms of quantity and quality. These are the typical challenges that we address in our research group. And now, if you look at these topics, how do we address it? As I said, we always start from the management perspective. We identify who is taking a decision. Then we identify the research demand. The beginning of each research is always observation. Observation, monitoring, measurement. So we are using satellite data or drone data, ITT SmartSense. Firos will tell you more about it. Sometimes it's an observation like a survey, interviews, and so on. So this is the, let's say, the essence that we need to prepare research. So someone has to provide it. Otherwise, either you use secondary data or you are taking data yourself, according to the data and knowledge gap that you identified. And then we are entering into data analysis and modeling. Perhaps Juan will also announce later the option to learn something about grass, or Oscar already is teaching R to some of you, which is a programming language that we use for many tools that we develop, but also many tools that others develop. So it's a very useful combination of different tools and models. Grass would be, let's say, not a model, but let's say a geographic information system, but one that is more diverse, let's say more versatile than perhaps the standard GIS method. So we are using different steps in research, and when you address a topic, and of course you think, how can I get the data? Then we will discuss in the course of your master thesis also how to do that. You could even focus your master thesis on just improving these kind of let's say measurements, observations, and or for example contributing to improving our sensor technology, or the question of how to transfer data. Depending on your interest, what do you want to do? Where do you want to excel? After a year, let's say, that means what is the qualification that you want to bring to the market with you, and you either want to learn something about a certain modeling technique or measurement technique, you may want to learn something about an institution, and then that is why you perhaps share or join a project with Nature Conservancy. So all these are options for you to develop your personal profile, and that is the offer that we make, that you can choose if you want to learn more technical things on getting the data, observing it, because monitoring is always, not only for research, also for management, it's the essential task, because without information about our current status, we cannot know what we need to change in order to reach a desired future status. And here again, let's say you can choose which kind of data analytical skill you want to improve, and we are offering a lot. I will say a few more words about that, but not too much today. And this is the flow of information that we follow, starting from the demand of society, but then going back to society again in form of supporting decision-making processes. Now, again, where I can only mention it briefly, but different forms of observing the environment and of course also the human environment means that we can observe different forms of the environment, and we can do that by certain technologies, sensors. Whenever any kind of sensor is producing a digital signal, we can store it, and then we can also send it via whatever form of data transmission, and this is what Firos will explain a little bit more. But we can also involve people in monitoring, and we have also had experiences in community-based monitoring, working with schools in Brazil, working with NGOs in Nepal, for example, or in Bangladesh on different forms of, let's say, involving the community in observing their environment, measuring, but not installing a sensor there, but involving different parts of society. So that is a very also interesting alternative to obtain information on our environment. Now, regarding modeling, I'm just mentioning here the models we are using at the moment, and if you just think about hydrology, those who attend now the class on hydrology of Professor Jackson, they use HPV, for example, as a HEC HMS. But we are using different models according to the data availability, according to the, let's say, desired result. One model may be better or another. No, there is not the better model, but it's always depending on the given situation. So these are hydrological models we are using, and even HPV is now it's one model, but we apply it in different forms and different varieties, and according to the local situation. Hydrodynamics, I think then, where Jorge is expert on that, in the Javeriana University, he's using Telemac, I think. We are using Mike 11, and we modeled, for example, saltwater intrusion. But then flood risk management for groundwater, ModFlow, but also, well, Firos, for example, is using actually FeeFlow, also another model in his PhD thesis, which is even not mentioned here. Different Mike models from DHI. Then reservoir modeling is an important task if you want to see how climate change can impact reservoir storage, but also then the operation of the reservoir can change the amount of storage, and can change the downstream flow. We need to model it, and we are using HEC RESIM for that, for example, as an open source solution, or Riverware as a more professional solution. CropWatt, AquaCrop, CropSyst, water allocation. If you distribute water, you need to use other models. Now, water quality, Qual2K, you may have heard it if you work there, and so on. That means it is a little bit confusing, perhaps so many models, and if you say, okay, or in the beginning of your study said, I want to become a modeler, or I want to become a water modeler, this is not possible. No? You cannot become a modeler. Of course, you can model, but I would not even recommend to strive for becoming a modeler, because you need to take all of these only as tools. And let's say, you may use a different, tomorrow if you work in another project, you need another model. You cannot, let's say it's like, if I learn how to use a hammer, and then tomorrow I need to have a screw, then the hammer doesn't help me a lot. No? But I should have a basic understanding that there are different tools and I can use them, and of course have the skills to learn and use models. I would call this information literacy. That is what you need. But these are models we use, and there are around about 1,350 models that you could use in different settings. So nobody knows all the models. Basically, each PhD thesis is developing a new model. That's like, I think, wrong thinking. But the many supervisors of PhD thesis, they think this is innovative. If you develop a new model, this is innovative. The result is that we have thousands of models, but then nobody knows about them. Nobody can use it. Typically, the person developing it, programming it, and so on, is then the only person knowing to use it. And sometimes it's documented well, sometimes not so well. So most of the models that we use are quite standard models, and they are documented well. Most of them are open source, which is also an advantage. If we come to GRASS, it's also an open source GIS. QGIS is actually using GRASS algorithm to a large extent, which is also QGIS is an open source GIS. But then, of course, ArcGIS has certain advantages. Now, the same we do with Riverware. It has certain advantages over HackResSim. So sometimes you may use one, sometimes another software. That's all I want to say. So this is not about telling you we want to do a research and we want to apply aquacrop in a certain region, and this is your task. This could not be our main purpose. No? But whenever you find a task, then you should know there is a variety of options you can use, and then you choose the right one. Hopefully, under guidance of let's say people who have used them before, and hopefully also in using our ITT toolbox. And here's Zriab. He is collecting the toolbox. That means for these tools and for other tools, also tools on how to obtain data. And so we have a one-page summary telling you, but also telling PhD students, telling our partners, what is this tool about? What is the strength of it? What is the weakness of it? How much? What kind of data do I need? Do I need, let's say, how long does it take typically to set up such a model? No? What is the spatial resolution of it? What are the applications that where I can read how the model was used, etc., etc. So this is the toolbox. No, a toolbox is not. You will not find the screwdriver or the hammer there, but you will get a description of it, and let's say you get a link to where you find it. No? So then you can go to that room and get it. No? Because, as I said, most of them are online and open source. Now, that is around about what we do. So we understand systems of land and water and their interaction, always in relation to human relevance. We are not understanding just the ecosystem, how it works, how water flows through soil or a watershed. But typically we work in regions which are not that small, not very small. So that means we are working at watersheds where you typically find a couple of thousand or a couple of million people living there, having different demands of water, different uses, etc. That is our approach. And now who we are, I said we have many PhD students, no, not PhD students, sorry, postdocs. So these are members of our research group working on different topics. You can read it here, and most of them you know, I guess. And if you don't know them, in the next Wednesdays we are presenting research of most of these people in this room. Also here, well, Dr. Georg, not Meyer, sorry, this is an old, Lamberti, that is a very old version, no? And also Marsa, she's doctor by now. Soon, I think, also Firos and Santiago. But these are, let's say, senior scientific staff. And then we have a long list of PhD students Some of them you have seen, some of them are giving classes, teaching in some of our modules from different parts of the world, and some of them without pictures, and some of them not even mentioned. Zriab, I don't have you there. I need to update it. No, Zriab joined our research group recently as a young scientist. So, to summarize, what can we offer? Well, I think very important, the applied research, that means the direct connection to our partners. You have seen this world map, and we are providing active links to our partners. That means if you go for your research within our projects, you will have somebody taking care of you and who can provide you with the assistance in the place, but also who can connect you with the stakeholders and those who actually face the challenges. And that is, let's say, then the main, I think, advantage of our research group is this long-term connection. I'm working at ITT since almost 20 years, and since then establishing relationship with partners. For example, in Chile, where I also did my PhD, but in Brazil, we are working also since 20 years, in Vietnam since 12 years, and so on. So that is, I think, something that you cannot develop overnight. No, it's something that needs to grow, and it's something that is really developing over time. With Javriana, I think we already work together 4 years now, no, more or less.
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years, yeah.
First meeting in San Luis Potosí.
In San Luis Potosí was the first meeting, yeah.
You were in a meeting with Jaime.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's around 4 years ago, no? So a younger but very strong partnership, and with a lot of common interest. And we have other partners. Now we will meet again in August in Costa Rica, because we will establish a new master course in Costa Rica jointly together with Javriana University and Ecuador University of Cuenca. Well, that's what I wanted to share. So in the general sense, now we have some specific proposals as well. But as I said, we will have more presentations. If you, let's say, everything related to the Nile, you will see the individual proposals. You have also heard Nadia Al-Agib, for example, who is a member, of course, of the Nile group. So I'm not presenting all the individual proposals. Perhaps because Santiago is here, I will also Firoz propose. I think you will say a few words about that later, no? This is why I give perhaps Santiago the chance, because it's a little bit off the world map that I have shown. We have cooperation with Mexico since a long time. Santiago is from Mexico, but we're doing research also in Brazil and other parts of the world. But actually in Mexico we work in San Luis Potosí. Now this proposal is from another part of Mexico, but perhaps you can say a few words about this idea.
Yeah, well, I think it's described there, and the main objective is to assess the impacts of genetically modified soybean production in southern Mexico. And it has been done for the last 6 years intensively, and there's a conflict between the farmers producing soybean and Mayan beekeepers, so they're from an indigenous origin. And the problem is that the impact of this kind of production has decreased the number of bees in the region. Also, they have faced some deforestation, and of course the impacts on water quality. And the idea is to make an assessment on these impacts, and also, try to generate information which can lead to solving this conflict between these two production systems. And we have a partner, which is the Center of Research and Education and Social Anthropology in southern Mexico. There's also another university which would participate with, for example, water quality analysis and so on. And well, if you're interested, just let me know.
Thank you. Now, well, in order to, let's say, not have you only sitting there listening, I give, let's say, a couple of minutes if you have time for questions before I hand over to Juan and then to Jorge. So is there anything, let's say, regarding either the region or the topic or any, let's say, general aspect about a master thesis that you would like to inquire about? Yes?
Yes, Schneider as an example. He had a separate session when he explained his proposal. And we want to understand, when you told us that there's the Nile Basin group, if I take I'm asking Dr. Nader, is it you who's the main supervisor, or Dr. Nader, or that's
Okay, yeah, that is, let's say, officially, the master thesis should be supervised by a professor. No, that's the official terminology. But it's, there is also, if the professor agrees, let's say, to hand over a topic to another colleague who has in our case, let's say, our internal requirement is to have a PhD. That person can also be the official supervisor. So that is the official wording. And well, we would not be a team if that is not possible. Then and say if I would always be officially the supervisor, it would not make sense. So that means you can have Nadia Al-Agib, or you can have Sude Dehnavi, or you can have Rui Pedroso, Alexander Naudet, all these people with a PhD, they can be your supervisor. And at the end, it's, let's say, of course, let's say, I'm also, well, Nadia Al-Agib is from Sudan, so of course he has definitely a very clear advantage if you especially do your research in Sudan. But I'm also involved in the research in the Nile Basin since 10 years, so I can supervise many topics there. But at the end, it's a question of the scientific expertise. So let's say, what do you want to do? And of course, also it's a question of, let's say, fit between your ideas and the ideas of your supervisor. So this is why the choice of a supervisor here at ITT is completely free. We will never tell you have to take this supervisor. It's something that it needs to fit. And both parties need to feel comfortable in doing research. So, but all the people I mentioned with the doctor, and I think this is also the official list, they can be your supervisor. So if in the MENA region, if you, for example, want to do your research with Sude Dehnavi, she's offering topics like migration and environmental degradation, for example. That's completely fine.